phones, and shameless. And I actually, last week, I just did an episode of NCIS LA, so that'll be in the new season. And then anime stuff that I've done, I'm Asuna in Sword Art Online, Hattie in Soul Eater, Lizzie in Black Butler, Lucy in Fairy Tale, Gage in Borderlands 2, Sailor Venus and Sailor Moon.
Borderlands Handsome Collection.
Yeah, Yoshika in Strike Witches, which I'm very excited that we're getting more of. Road and D Greyman, which I know we're working on Hallow. Well, I'm not working on it yet. I hope I will be. I don't know. It's a broadcast up. So she's in the poster. I'm hoping she shows up. And I'm hoping we get to do the rest of the episodes from the first season. But yeah, this is a panel where I talk about the differences of film work, theater, voice work, but if you guys are like, I really just want to know what it was like to play this character, I'm not going to be like, that's off topic, I'm sorry, please open your books to page whatever it is. I don't care. If you guys want to take the panel in a different direction, I'm totally cool with that. Does anybody have interest in being an actor or voice actor or, sweet, okay. So you know if you want to be a voice actor, you actually just want to be an actor, right?
Yes. Okay.
Because normally I'm like, who wants to be a voice actor? Everybody raises their hand. I'm like, who wants to be an actor? Nobody raises their hand. I'm like, ooh, trick question. Because when I started out in this business, I was 6 years old, and my ultimate goal was to be on Barney. That did not come to fruition, which is, I guess, okay, I've gotten to do some other cool things. And I've worked with the voice of Barney a couple of times. But I just started out doing on-camera stuff and taking classes and wanting to do commercials and doing anything and everything that I could to prove to my parents that I could make it in this business, because they said, it's hard, you're not going to like it. And I was like, try me. So they're like, well, take this class, and you have to take this class, and it's hard work. And I was all about it. And then I had an agent who said 7-Eleven is casting for this little kid that they want, like a 3-year-old, to say all of the lines in this commercial talking about how Slurpees are made. And it's like this underground thing with Slurpee fairies and all of this stuff. And they, shocker, couldn't find a 3-year-old that could say all these big words. So they hired me at 7, who sounded like a 3-year-old, to do this commercial, and that's how I kind of fell into doing voiceover. It all stemmed from the fact that I was a 7-year-old who sounded like I was 3. So that's kind of how I fell into voiceover. I didn't intend to be a voice actor. I didn't know that voice acting for anime was a thing. My understanding of anime in my naive brain was that it was Sailor Moon, Pokemon, and Dragon Ball Z, and all those shows had English voice actors, so how would I get to work on them? And then fast forward a couple years, and I'm working on Sailor Moon and Sailor Moon Crystal, and I'm like, well, this is amazing. I was on one of those shows that was all I thought anime was, and now I've gotten to do a couple other shows. So it's very exciting. But because it's such a hard business and it's so competitive and everybody wants to do it, because they're like, oh, it's really fun, I love telling stories, and I love this show, and I want to act and jump into this fantasy world. It's very competitive, so you have to be willing to do commercial work, and you have to be willing to do film work, and be an extra, and do radio, and do whatever you can, because if you don't get work that month, your landlord, unless you just really lucked out with a really cool landlord, is not going to be cool with, I'm sorry I didn't get to act this month, can I pay you with a hug? Like, it's just probably not going to happen. If you have a landlord that's totally down with that, don't ever move. But yeah, so that's kind of been my experience as an actor. Do you guys have any questions about stuff, or I'll just start talking about the difference between all the different types of acting? Do you have a question? Oh.
Right now. Sorry.
No.
I'm just really trying to pay attention.
Oh, absolutely. I started, I think the basic difference is between film work and stage, which I guess would be the most similar. Stage, obviously you're on stage. More than likely you're not going to get a mic unless you're doing a musical and you've got like 8 shows a week or 6 shows a week, and they don't want you to blow your voice out by projecting to the back row. But most of the time you would have to know know that you have to project all the way so that everyone can hear you. So if you're in a smaller, like, black box space, you don't have to project as much. And a lot of people are like, well, you just yell. You don't want to yell because you're going to just kill your voice. And the whole point of acting, if you're telling a story where your character is like about to be attacked and she's trying to whisper in the corner, like yelling in this room, like, please don't kill me, is not going to work because he's going to find you. So you want to be able to project while whispering. But that's where voice and diction classes come in handy, and movement classes, and a really good director. So I guess the first thing is you always want to know where your audience is. For voiceover, your audience is this lovely little microphone right here, because if someone is wearing earbuds watching the anime or the cartoon or the video game, they're hearing you in their brain. So please don't yell and blow their ears out. Now, if that person has the volume up to max, that's on them. We have mix engineers that try to make it so that we're not super loud and destroying their ears. But so you want to make sure that you're not like blowing out the mic. Like, I don't need to yell right now because you guys, your ears are this close to my face. But for a film, it's the same situation. You usually have a microphone somewhere on your body, usually right here in the center, because it's got to be under your clothes so you can't see it, but you also don't want to yell there. And it's film, so if somebody's talking this close to your face, it's not going to make sense for you to yell at them unless you're mad at them. And usually in those scenes, if you're this close to someone, you're either going to kiss them or you're going to yell at them and kill them. And so you don't need to yell in either situation unless you're really mad. So that's the first thing. Figure out where your audience is and where how your volume needs to change. Now, figuring out facial expressions for voiceover, it doesn't matter. You can make crazy faces, and I can guarantee you, when I'm voicing a cat or a small child, I'm making a weird face. Because no one's going to see that. But for film, you're going to see it, and it's going to be on a huge screen, and so you usually have to get over the point of like, wow, I look really ridiculous in this scene, because that might be the case. Or, which even if like people be like, oh, that looks great, the whole time I'm like, I have two oddly shaped eyes. That big, I can see them all. You could tell I was tired this day. You could, like, I just pick apart the entire scene. So you have to get over that when you're watching that. For stage, your facial expressions can be bigger, and they have to be because people that paid the same amount of money for a seat way in the back want to still be able to see the story as well as somebody way up in the front. So that's the difference with that. Film, voiceover, theater, usually you're telling a dramatic or a comedic story, so you want the relationships to be realistic and honest, and you're not selling anything. For a commercial, be it on camera or voiceover, you've got to say the product. You've got to like highlight it. You have to billboard it. That's what they're paying you to do. But the trick is, you don't want to highlight it to the point and say these lines where it's fake, because we've all seen those commercials where we're like, this is the worst commercial I've ever seen. They don't believe anything they're saying. But when you see a great commercial where you feel like they're honestly talking to you and they really trust this product and they really love it, those are the people that are going to get hired. So you still need to often create a relationship. And if you're selling Tide, you have to talk about why you love Tide. And honestly why you believe in that. It's so silly. Everybody that I've talked to always says, I hate commercials, I don't want to do commercials. It's so weird. I'm like, but commercials pay the best of anything in the business. Voiceover commercials pay far more than anime. I have one friend who did a commercial when he was 10 years old for Hellman's Mayonnaise. It runs every Christmas. All he does is run across the screen yelling Santa, and I think at this point he's made $100,000 off that commercial. I've never made that kind of money for anything ever in my life. And I'm like, why don't I get to be in a national commercial that reruns every year? I mean, come on. And that's all he had to do. So every time that I talk to somebody, they're like, I just am not going to do commercials. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll do commercials. I'm not above it. If I'm not working on anything else, like to have like some money that I can pay rent with that one commercial I did 1,000,000 years ago. So I always tell people, never say no to work unless, and this is a huge unless you feel morally compromised. If it's a role that you're like, I will not be able to sleep at night, I will not be able to watch this with my parents, I will not be able to, if my kids saw this down in the future and they said, Mom, why did you do this? I would never be able to, I can't do it if I would have to talk to my kids and be like, well, sometimes you do things you're not proud of. That's not an answer. Like if you say, well, this isn't really the way that I would necessarily, there's a difference between playing a character that you don't agree with, but my moral compass is if the project teaches someone something and someone can leave the film or leave the anime or leave the project better off, then it's a good project. But if there are moments where I feel like this is so gratuitous and icky and I would hate myself at the end of the day and feel disgusting, I can't do it. But if I say, look, this character goes through a great journey, or I feel like I could learn something about myself and be a better person, or someone else could be a better person, then it's a story worth telling. And that's the great thing about art, and that's a great thing about actors and people being completely different. Something that I don't connect with is something that someone else absolutely loves, which means the role was made for them and it's not made for me. And the big thing is, if you're wanting to be an actor, you're gonna have to audition all the time. You're gonna have to be told all the time, sorry, it didn't work. Either you're too short, you're too tall, your face looks weird, you don't look like someone else. Like, it doesn't matter. You can't take it personally, even though I always do when someone's like, I had two auditions where I went in and they said, I'm sorry, we just feel like you're too short and too fat. And then the next day, the same day, went to another audition, they're like, we thought you were too tall and thin. And I'm like, okay, this is the same day. It's not like I gained pounds and lost pounds in 15 minutes. Like, if I could do that, I would be super rich right now. So I would just bottle that formula and sell it. You can't take it personally. It's their opinion. They're the ones making the project, and what they say goes. And they have to cast an entire catalog of people, an entire world of people, and if they say, this is the one guy who was born to play this role, we really like this girl, but she's 9 inches too short for him, and it's a love story, and we can't fit them in the same frame. So like, it would be a movie about the top of someone's head and the leading guy's face, which is just not gonna work. They do have Apple boxes, but I mean, having to build an Apple box of Street is really not easy, and it's expensive. It's been done for me a couple of times. It's really awkward, where they're like, oh, can we get her a box? Like 40 boxes so she can walk next to the guy who's really tall? It's not demeaning at all. So it's a very weird business. Just know that you're gonna audition for stuff. You're not gonna get cast a lot. And when you do get cast, it's gonna be amazing, and you have to appreciate every opportunity you get to go in and act. And you have to appreciate every time you get a call back, and every time somebody says, wow, that was really awesome. Because it genuinely was. And that might be all that you get that day is, wow, that was really awesome. And you have to go, cool, today I did my job. I always say, if I go into the room and I make a choice and I don't go, I mean, obviously I would love to get the job, but I don't go into the room saying, I need to get this job, I need to get this job. I go into the room saying, I want to make sure that that casting director or that table read or whoever's at the room, that they smile one time. And if that means I crack a horrible joke or I trip falling in the room, because that's how life happens sometimes, if I leave the room and they felt a little bit better about their day, that was my job. If they liked my acting, if they hated my acting, that doesn't matter. I am who I am. This is all I have to offer. But I can try to make someone smile, and I can try to say, like, what a great shirt, or, you know, whatever the case is. Because that's all you can do is try to make someone's day. Which works, if you're an actor, if you're a dentist, if you work at Starbucks, if you're, like, try to be nice to each other. And that's the only thing you can do as an actor. That's the only thing you can do in anything. Because it's such a weird business. People can say they love you and they're going to give you a job, or they hate you and they give you a job. I don't know. It's so weird. Do you guys have any questions? You want to talk about agents or roles or anything like that? Yes?
getting the role of Asuna and SAO, what was that thought process like, and what was your favorite line to do as Asuna?
Good questions. Well, when I auditioned for Asuna, that was my first anime that I auditioned for in Los Angeles after I had moved there. So Bang Zoom sent me the scripts, first audition ever. So I decided, well, I'll watch a couple episodes. I'd heard people talking about it in conventions, said it was a great show. I was like, I'll just watch one episode and get a feel for it. I watched 5 episodes. And then I was like, oh, the audition's due in 20 minutes, because I had not slept and just watched all the way through. And so I just decided to voice the character not based on what I had heard. I didn't want to do a direct voice match of the Japanese character because I felt like it would sound like a ripoff of that performance. And I'm like, well, if they're hiring me, they're going to get a little bit of me in the room. So might as well be how she inspired my perception of Asuna, what I bring to the character, and if they like it, cool. If they don't, I guess it wasn't meant to be. But for this one, since I'd seen the show and I loved the show, I really wanted to do it. So I sent in the audition. I think I auditioned for Asuna, Lisbeth, and I can't remember who the other character was.
There was also Silica, there was Lee.
No, it was a really small character. Yulier.
Oh, there we go.
And so I auditioned for those 3. They called me back in and said, we want you to come back for a callback and audition with the director and work with the producer. And so I read for Asuna again. They're like, you're not reading for anything else, you're just reading for Asuna. And I was like, well, this is terrifying. Because this either means that I either get Asuna or I get nothing. Like I either work on the show as the lead or I'm not working on the show at all. I always like when they say, we've got 3 options for you, because I'm like, this is 3 chances to get a job. When they like cut it down to 1 chance, you're like, oh, don't screw this up, friend. So I read for Asuna, and they kept saying like, can we get her a little higher? Can we get her a little girlier? Okay, not that girly. We don't want to lose the kind of strength that she has, and so it was a really hard balance to find. And I thought, I don't think I'm getting this job, because they were just going back and forth a lot. And then they called and said, I got it. And they were like, do you want to watch a couple episodes? And I said, well, I've seen the first 6. And I said, do I want to watch ahead of time? Can I watch the whole? They were like, just watch up to 12, because we're going to record the first 6 and then another batch, but you can watch up to 12. So I was like, okay, prepped for it, was ready for my first session, so excited, watched all the way to 12, showed up for my session, something happens in 12, I don't want to spoil it, it's been out for a while, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Something happens in 12, it was very depressing for me. I was trying to watch more uplifting television before I went in for my session, because I was so depressed. So I watched Joan of Arcadia, which is my favorite show. It never lets me down. And then there's one thing that happens in that show where a certain someone of the male variety makes a really poor choice. And it was like the most depressing part of the season. And that's the episode that I happened to be watching that day. And so I was like, this is just not my day. I watched one more movie that I was like, well, this won't let me down. I didn't look what it was. I put it into the DVD player. And it was like a horrible, depressing movie where the main character dies in the first like 30 minutes. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. So my first session for Asuna was really hard, because I walked in there and I was just like in a dark cloud of everything in entertainment wants to make me cry today. And so I went in to record, and they were like, are you okay? I was like, I'm just so depressed. And I explained the whole situation. They were like, well, it'll be fun. So then I kind of just lost myself in the anime, forgot about what I knew. And that's one of the things that's so magical about my job, is when I can step into another character and live in their world, I don't have to deal with my depressing situation. And it was great, because when she had a dark moment, I was like, oh, don't worry, I've got some sadness stocked up. I'll just pull some of it out from earlier today, thanks to what I've watched. I think in the duration of the anime, it's hard to pick one line, but in the first season, I really loved all of the stuff with Yui and the cabin, and there's a cabin scene that Bryce and I did, which was really fun. The director said he wanted it to feel more like a movie. He wanted Sword Art to feel more like a movie, so he wanted our intensity to be really intense, but really small, because we were so close together. And Bryce had recorded before time working together, and it was really, it's one of those things where you're like, man, this is magical. When the directors got it and the voice actors are playing off of each other, and Bryce gave me such an amazing performance, all I had to do was just react off of him and say the lines, and it was so cool how that worked. And actually working with Erica on the Mother's Rosario arc in season 2 was so hard for me. I had lost my great aunt, and so hadn't fully grieved from that process, and I didn't realize I hadn't fully grieved until I'm doing these scenes and doing this episode. And so it really, really helped me grow as a person and get through some of that stuff. And so that was a really important arc, and I loved working on it.
Speaking of which,
There it is. Yes, indeed.
from 90
So
bucks
cool.
on Right Stuff.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
What was the most awkward experience you had with a fan?
The most awkward experience I had with a fan. I don't know. It wasn't a fan, but it was sort of an awkward experience, and I was probably the one who made it awkward. I was at an anime store, and I had just been cast in Strike Witches, and the director said, this anime store has a ton of Strike Witches stuff. And I was like, cool, I want to go get some. He was like, the show has not been announced yet, so you cannot tell anybody. If anybody finds out that you're playing Yoshika, you're in serious trouble and you could lose the role. And I was like, don't worry, no one will find out. So I go into this anime store, I'm like taking all this Strike Witches stuff, like throwing it on the counter. And she was like, oh, you like Strike Witches? I was like, yeah, it's such a fun show. And she was like, yeah, that's so crazy. I guess Yoshika's your favorite. I was like, she is. She's a cool character. And I didn't realize, I forgot, and this happened a lot in school too. I had an engineer that made a song as my ringtone that was Baby Cherami, Pick Up Your Phone. And he sings it. So my phone rings when I'm in there. Baby Cherami, pick up your phone. Like 6 times. And I was like, oh my God. And she looks at me and we both like stopped in a moment. She's like, Cherami Leigh? Like from Funimation? And I was like, gotta go buy! And I just like ran out of the store, got in my car and like sped off. I was like, I'm not losing this job! There's like 8 items of Yoshika on the table. And so I didn't think like, you could have just been like, just don't say anything. But like, I'm an awkward human being, and I was just like, if you don't buy it, no one has to know. But it probably made it worse, that she's like, I think Cherami's playing this character, because she just like put all this stuff on the table and then ran. So now my phone lives on silent. Because I don't know how to handle things like that. But that was probably the most awkward encounter, and she wasn't even really a fan, she was just somebody in the industry, and I made it more awkward than it needed to be. So that was interesting. Any other questions? Yes.
When it comes to preparation, whether it be for an audition or just getting ready to get into character, what do you normally do, or what do you suggest for actors in general?
Good question. And this sounds so silly, but when I have an audition, especially if it's one that's like very different from me, I usually like characters that are really descriptive. Like I had one character and they said she was like, she was a teacher and she was supposed to be like 24, but she looked like she was like 15. So the whole series she was supposed to be mistaken for a student, but she wanted everyone to respect her. And so they described her as like a Reese Witherspoon from Election or a Kristen Chenoweth from really anything Kristen Chenoweth has been in. And so they were like, she dresses really quirky, she like has, so I got really excited, and I was like, well, how do I get into the character? I'd run the lines, I kind of knew the performance I wanted to do, but what really made that character for me was getting dressed that morning and figuring out what kind of music I thought she'd listen to. So I'm going through my closet, I'm like, oh, this sunglasses sweater is cool. I'm gonna pair it with this skirt that makes no sense that I would never wear. But it was like so exciting to get dressed through the eyes of that character that I knew when I walked into the room, I'm like, this is my definition of her. I am her head to toe, and then I'll pick songs if I know I have to I had to do a really emotional scene for a film, and so I made a playlist on my iPod of songs that she would listen to, that I thought she would listen to, and just sat there, listened to that the whole time, and then when they said action, I would take my headphones out and like lose the iPod. So that way I was living in the headspace of that character. So I guess like clothing, makeup, music, that stuff really informs me just feeling confident in the character, because I think the worst part of an audition, you can do all the work and feel great about your scene and be a super amazing actor and ready to give the best performance, but as soon as you walk into that waiting room and you see the other girls that are there, you start going, oh, I guess that could be a way the character's played. I could see how that look would work. And you could have walked in going, this is mine. Like, I've read the script, I know this is me, I know everything about it, but if I have dressed the character, I've played the music for the character, it's harder for me to allow someone else to permeate my headspace and break down my confidence, so I can walk in the room and just do the best audition I can. So that definitely helps. I also usually try to do some sort of meditation or breathing exercise where I just like take a deep breath and release everything and kind of just like say to the universe, like, if I get this, thank you, I'm ready to accept the parts that are right for me, and I release the ones that aren't. I'm not going to allow it to like beat me up, because for so many years, and I still do it sometimes if it's a role that I really love, it's so hard to let it go when you love this character and you've gotten so excited to get to be this character for a day, and it's kind of like, okay, I love this so much and I love being this character and I can see where the show is going to go and I can see what her journey is going to be like, that when they say, sorry, you're not what we're looking for, it's kind of hard to say goodbye, because that part of you has to not die, but it has to go away. You can't live with it as much anymore. So I have to kind of like, I guess it's like a quick prayer, like, thank you for letting me get to act today, thank you for letting me get to play this character, and I'm so excited to go into this room and meet these people and say these words and in some way get to be a part of this series, whether anybody sees it or not. I was a part of the casting process, so I'm a part of the series, and now I have to let it go, and if it happens, it happens. But yeah, the fun part for me is like picking out my clothes and like putting together an outfit, and I usually ask my mom or my husband, I'm like, what do you guys think about this? And sometimes they'll say, yeah, I don't know, I think you should wear the other outfit. And that's how I know if I'm really in the character, because I'll go, no, this is what she would wear. This is it. And then, of course, the hard thing is, sometimes you'll be getting ready, and if you're a girl, I don't know if guys deal with this as much, but you're going through your closet, you're like, I have nothing. And now I legitimately have nothing, because I'm not this person. I don't dress like this. Gotta go to the mall and go shopping. Like, that never hurts. But yeah, that's what thrift stores are for, because I cannot spend like hundreds of dollars every time I need to go for an audition. That's madness. I usually like to go, you have a $10 budget, try to make it work. I'm like, Tim Gunn, find me the cheapest clothes that will work for this audition. This is what I need. Any other questions? Yes.
I got two quick
Yeah,
questions.
sure.
Have you seen Todd's tattoo?
Yes. His fairy tale tattoo?
Yeah, what was your reaction to that?
I thought it was awesome. I also saw the video of him when he got it done, and I was like, Todd, are you crying? I mean, it's painful. The director got his right on his calf, so I know the two of them, like, it's a huge amount of ink going into a very large muscle, and he was like, yeah, it was probably one of the most painful things I've ever dealt with in my life.
Do you remember the Patty Meets Lucy?
Yeah.
You think you could do that? And I recorded because my friend...
Oh my gosh, like, I don't remember. I remember doing it. I don't remember what I said because I improvised it.
Oh.
So I don't remember. I know it's on YouTube. I'll try to think of it later.
I have one more request
Yeah.
from my friend, because she really loves the, Soul Eater.
Yeah,
Fairy tale. Can you do Open the Gate of Aquarius?
sure.
1, 2, 3.
Open! Oh, yeah, there we go. Open! Gate of the Water Bearer! Aquarius! I'm so used to every time I go to a convention, everyone's like, open the bowl, thank you. So like, open the bowl for open the gate for Taurus. So I'm like, open, Gate of the Golden, that's not what Aquarius is, hold on. It was so sad, like 2 months ago, we finished recording Fairy Tale. And so that was really a hard week, because I'm like, oh my God, I've been playing this character for 7 years. I don't scream open gate of fill in blank anymore. This is so hard. So I'm hoping it comes back. They keep telling me that it's doing really well and they're animating to catch up to the manga, so it should be back. like fingers crossed, but I remember as I drove away, I think it's a Zara Larsson song, my radio started playing I Will Never Forget You. And I was like, why are you doing this to me, world? Like, it's not hard enough. So I was like crying as I'm like leaving the studio. I'm like, I hope I get to come back. I miss Lucy already. So sad. Yeah, any other questions? Yes.
Out of all your voice acting roles, which one was your favorite?
It's so difficult to pick a favorite. I know. It's like well, first of all, I have a lot of characters that have a lot of sass. Most of them are really good with swords, and they are part of me, so I feel like if I were to pick one over the other, then the other ones would line up and be like, all right, we'll take you, and I can't deal with that. But honestly, it's been amazing to me when the characters come into my life and when I get to work with them and how they will be dealing with things that I'm dealing with in an indirect way, and they'll say something or another character will say something. And I'm like, this is exactly what I needed to hear. This is so weird and magical and crazy. I love this. So it's hard to pick a favorite because I can honestly pinpoint at least one scene where I could say this character helped me get over this in my life. Working on this helped me get over this like hurdle in my life. And so to pick a favorite, I'm like, well, they've all helped me. They've all been such an instrumental part of me growing as a person. So I can't pick a favorite and say like, well, what you did was more important for me than somebody else. And it's like, no, that's not true. So it's so hard. I can honestly say there hasn't been a character that I've left the studio and been like, thank goodness I never have to do that again. Because I've really enjoyed every single moment. I mean, when I was working on Not Cool, there were a couple things that I had to do in the movie where I was like, thank God I don't have to do that again. But as I left as I was like driving home from set, I would be like, wow, but Cherami would have never done that. You would have never done that as yourself. But when you were playing Tori, suddenly you were fearless. And I was like, wow, but it was still you. You did that. You didn't have a problem with it. But I needed Tori to help me get over that. So it's pretty amazing. Because like if you've seen the movie, the throw up scene, I never want to do that again in my life. But it was my first day of filming. So very first scene, very first day of filming, and it was like, I remember going like right before we were gonna do it, I was like, guys, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster. I don't like roller coasters. Once you get to the top and you're like, oh, I've done this, I've committed to this. Okay, guess we're doing this. And they're like, okay, well, we're not going to tell you when it's going to happen. They're like, well, maybe we should count down. I was like, let's just like do it, please, because like I'm standing here knowing something's going to happen. This is terrible. I smelled like applesauce for like 3 days, because that's what it was. Everyone's like, you smell like apple pie. I was like, yeah, let's bring up that moment again. Like, that was so fun. But yeah, no, it was pretty crazy. Anything else? Yes.
How did it feel like you're in the watermelon scene in that hole?
The watermelon scene! Yes! The one thing in my life that people that don't know really that I'm an actor think that I just steal watermelon. And I, like people from school, like high school will send me a message like, dude, I saw that watermelon prank you did. And I was like, I didn't, it wasn't a prank. It was for a movie. Guys, there was from 8 camera angles. Where do you think that we got, like we brought all these people and nobody was like, oh my gosh, you're stealing watermelon. It's obviously from a movie. They're like, oh, I thought it was like surveillance cameras. I was like, have you seen a surveillance camera that clean? Because like everybody should have that. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. We were filming that at 4 in the morning after we had been outside freezing in Pittsburgh. Actually, when I was driving to that grocery store to film, I was like, my fingers are turning blue. Is this normal? So I got there, I was like, guys, is this weird? And they're like, oh my God. And they're like trying to heat up my fingers. And they're like, how long has that been happening? I was like, just in the car right here. My car couldn't heat up fast enough. And then I noticed my fingers were tingling and then they were blue. And so we started doing the scene. We had to figure out what the belly was gonna be, which was a process all on its own. Because a watermelon wouldn't work, as we tried about 8 different watermelons. And at 4 in the morning, everything's hilarious. We tried a pillow. We ended up settling on a balloon. We tried a bunch of different balloons. But that's why I had to hold the balloon, is because, well, as we know, helium allows things to float to the ceiling. So we would have to pull my shirt down, and then I would have to cover it, because there was like the little button on the balloon would often like peek out. So we had to like work with that. And I remember they were trying to move fast, and I was like, guys, my balloon is not secure. And they're like, it's okay, Cherami. They thought it was a joke. I was like, no, legitimately, balloon is not secure. And so my shirt started moving, the balloon started moving, and halfway through the scene, you just see a balloon fly up, and I'm no longer pregnant. Like, it was like, okay, now how do we get the balloon down? Because there was no string. So it's just like, well, there's the balloon. We got to do this again. And I really wanted them to put that in the outtake reel, because it was like so funny to watch my face and everyone else's like, sorry. But yeah, I did not get to do the watermelon stunt. I really wanted to, where I got to pop the watermelon. I don't know if they're gonna be mad that I'm like telling this, but whatever. I mean, like, it's out there. They put like pieces of watermelon in a baggie and put it on her stomach, and then the stunt woman literally just fell on the ground, caught herself, and the watermelon popped and went everywhere. So cool. But all I had to do was the before and after, and when I fell, I landed on a mat. She's the one who did the super intense, crazy, awesome stunt of like popping watermelon. It was really cool. But yeah, it's been all over Reddit, and it like never goes away, and I kind of don't want to, because I like people thinking that I steal watermelon, because I mean, it's a useless thing to steal. Why not? Although I was with a friend, and this was actually a pretty cool thing. When I was at, I think I was at like Target, and I overheard somebody, and they were like, "Yeah, we should take a watermelon, be like that girl in that video where she like takes the watermelon." And I was like, "I'm a girl with a watermelon. You don't even know, but that's me. This is awesome." I've inspired people to want to steal a watermelon. That was not the intention. Guys, just buy the watermelon. It's maybe like $2. It's not worth it. But yeah, it was a really fun scene. I think it was more fun at 4 a.m. because Shane and I just laughed the entire time. Like, they were telling us, "Can you guys keep it together?" And I would say, "No, I can't." Sorry. Yes.
What's it been like recording for Sailor Venus?
Amazing. I mean, that entire process has been such a surreal experience. I actually found out that I got a call back for Sailor Moon when I was in Dallas for my wedding and recording for Funimation, and they said, "Can you come back in and record and meet the production team for Sailor Moon, and we'll have you audition for a couple characters." And I was like, "I can't. This sucks. I've now lost the opportunity to audition for Sailor Moon." And they said, "No, why don't you just send us an audition from the studio that you're at? Just don't tell them you're working on that it's for Sailor Moon." So I bribed one of the engineers with a donut if I got the job. And he didn't care. He was just like, "I'll do this, but if you get the job, I want a donut." And I was like, "Deal." So I went in, and what's tricky about saying that you're auditioning for Sailor Moon, but it's not Sailor Moon, is hard when one of the characters you're auditioning for is Usagi, and she does a Sailor Moon call-out. And then when you're auditioning for the other characters, they say Sailor Venus, Sailor Mars, Sailor Jupiter. Like, what are you gonna be like, "Oh, by the way, this is not Sailor Moon. I know it sounds like it, but it's not." Which is what I did. I told the director, he goes, "Is this Sailor Moon?" I go, "I know, I can see how you might get that. I understand why you might get that crazy notion. But actually, it's for a show that they really love Sailor Moon, and so they want us to use Sailor Moon lines to audition with, but it's not for Sailor Moon. That show already has been dubbed." So he was like, "Yeah, I just heard somebody was redubbing it." I was like, "Well, sir, that is not what this is for." So just big fans of Sailor Moon here that I'm auditioning for, not actually for Sailor Moon. So a week or so later, I was driving to the rehearsal dinner for my wedding, and I get an email, and they were like, "You are in the final consideration of the new cast for Sailor Moon. You have to agree to be at Sailor Moon Day. You have to agree to be available for recording. You have to agree," and there was like one other thing, and I was like, "Agreed for all of the above. What do I do now?" And she emailed me back. She was like, great, we'll contact you for scheduling. And I was like, wait, so I got it? This is weird. Okay. And so I emailed her back. I was like, cool. She was like, and then sends me another email. She's like, don't tell anyone. I was like, ah, man, I'm getting married, and I'm like, I can't tell anybody. So it was very awkward because everyone was like, hey, it's your wedding. Are you excited? I'm like, I'm super excited. I also got some other exciting news. What is it? I can't tell you. Why? Well, because I signed an NDA, and they'll take away the exciting news if you know, because I don't trust you with secrets, wedding guests. When I went in for the first session, I did not know who I was playing. I did not actually get called back for Sailor Venus, but when they heard my Luna audition and my Usagi audition, and I think I auditioned for one other character, they sent it to the creative team in Japan, and they heard, like, she said 2 seconds of your audition, and they were like, that's Sailor Venus. And, like, she was like, they all signed off immediately on you, and that was it, based on your other audition. And I was like, well, that's cool. So I went in, and all I had to do for my first session as Sailor Venus was just say, Sailor V, and for one of the eye catch things, because as we know, Sailor Venus doesn't show up until a little bit later. So I played a couple random girls, because I had told people, I'm like, all I want to do, I would love to work on Sailor Moon at some point, even if it's like random girl with hair bow that wants to get a boyfriend. Like, I would love to do that. And so the director was like, I heard in a panel that you wanted to be a random girl with a hair bow who is obsessed and wants to get a boyfriend. And I was like, well, yeah, but I mean, I'm Sailor Venus, so she has a hair bow. That's cool. And he was like, well, you're gonna get to do both. I was like, sir, you are just the gift that keeps on giving. What are you, a magical wizard of animation? Like, this is crazy. So I got to do a couple random characters, and I remember being terrified to do Sailor Venus because I'm like, this is so surreal. I watched the show. This is such an important series for so many people, including myself. I don't want to let anybody down. The last thing I want is for people to be like, she's killed my childhood. Because Twitter is a very angry place where things like that are said. And so I was like, I don't want to deal with that. And the director was like, get out of your head. Just know the creator of Sailor Moon, she signed off on you. She said, this is who I want. And the production team was like, yeah, without a doubt, that's the girl. And they were like, if that doesn't inspire confidence in you, nothing's going to. And I was like, wait, she said? They're like, yeah. I was like, oh, she gave me the blessing. Twitter can chill. I just won't read it. But I still read it, and I still feel bad. But like for the most part, I'm like, whatever. I'm playing Sailor Moon, and it's gonna be a different take. Everybody's gonna sound different. But I really have loved working on the series. And I'm wearing more orange than I ever have in my life. So that's good. Yes.
How did you come up with the idea? Who came up with the idea with the Sword Art Online radio broadcasts when season 2 was airing?
That was the production team. It was Hideaway and the rest of the Aniplex team. We have way too much fun with those. I think after they came up with the idea and had us come in for the first one with Ben, they realized this was a bad idea. They should never do it again. And then they kept doing it again. They have like for any other live broadcast where they have a 30-second delay if anybody says something horrible. They have like a 5-second delay, and oftentimes they just hold the button down, and they're like, whatever, we're just gonna have to edit it. They have made so many crazy commentary, so they do that a lot.
Because I noticed something like that because on the most majority of it, I had the last part of the broadcast on CD.
Yeah.
It's really awesome that Aniplex would do that.
It was really, really a fun time. We had a blast. I hope we get to do more of those. Yes?
For your voice acting role for Kumara Naegi from Danganronpa,
Yeah.
I noticed like towards as the game progressed that your voice from like being like the really like frightened, shy, bubbly girl, it ended up becoming like more kind of serious.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to have like a very noticeable shift with Kumara's voice?
Well, I had talked to the director, and when we first started working on the process, he had said, well, she's been trapped in this room for so long, she really doesn't know anything about the world, and she kept saying, I'm just a normal high school girl, like, I can't handle this, why is this happening to me? And then as I told them, I was like, she keeps saying I'm just a normal high school girl, I can't handle this, but I kind of want to, like, slap her sometimes and say, you are handling it. You've handled all of these other situations. And I said, after all the things that she's gone through, I feel like as a person, you grow and you kind of harden, and those situations that affected you before don't affect you anymore. So it kind of became, it was more dire as she was figuring out things, how she was going to, everything got a little more serious. As she got more information, she's like, okay, this is a do or die situation. This isn't just attacking me, this is the rest of the world. And as things got more serious and she had experienced more things and gotten out of situations, I felt like we wanted to see a shift of her strength and confidence in herself increasing, because in the beginning she really didn't know what she was capable of. And it wasn't something that I think that we like discussed at the beginning and said, we want to see this happen at this point. It was just kind of like as the journey of as the character went on, what she had gone through and what I had experienced, that it was just a natural shift. We didn't pick where we wanted it to happen and at what moment. It was just kind of like, well, this is where she changes, and it kind of just happened like life. So but that was such a fun game to work on and a really great experience. And I remember I would do sessions like 4 or 5 hours at a time, and after we would finish the session, I was like, that was 4 hours? It felt like 15 minutes, because I would just get lost in the story and lost in that world. And I would be very tired after I finished, and I never understood why. I was like, well, you have been running and fighting and dealing with very giant, adorable bears that are angry and want to kill you. I get it. I get why you might be tired. Any other questions? Yes.
How was your
Talking about the-
experience working
Oh, hold on. Yeah. Yes.
How was your experience working on Borderlands?
So cool. That was a dream. I worked on that for just like a couple of small characters that like showed up in the town, and then they had called back and said, we want you to read for this character that Chris Sabat was like, I think you'd be perfect for. And he was like, we had other voice actors play her, but they want to go in a different direction. They want her to be younger and a little quirkier. And so when I came in, they gave me all the echo logs to record, and they gave me like a brief skeleton of what they wanted me to say, and they said, just ad-lib. And I was like, okay. And that's a very dangerous thing to say to an actor who has done improv before, because when you say just ad-lib, they're like, oh, I'm not going to ask for parameters. I'm just going to go, and then you can cut me back. And so it was crazy, because I just went and ad-libbed, and they said, perfect, moving on. I was like, wait, you're not going to edit it? You're not going to like tell me to do it again and like rein it in and not be so crazy? And they're like, no, we like crazy. And so then as it happened, she got crazier and crazier
This
as
is
the session
Borderlands
went
we're
on.
talking about.
Do what?
This is Borderlands we're talking
True,
about.
yeah. So it was awesome. The writing was really fun. Anthony was really, really supportive. It was just really cool. I was a bridesmaid in a wedding while I was working on the game. And so I would have to do sessions and then go to wedding functions right after. And I would still be in engage mode. And I was like, let's blow this wedding up, let's do this. And the wedding planner was like, I'm so gonna kill you. Can you just like tone it down? I was like, I'm sorry, I'm working on a video game. And all the guys were like, all the groomsmen were like, what game, what game? And I was like, I can't tell you because I'll lose the job. And I couldn't talk about the game even when the game was announced, because I was the DLC character. So buses are going by with Borderlands logos and buy the game on this day. And it was terrible because I'm just taking pictures of these bus wraps and these billboards, and people are like, oh, are you in Borderlands? I'm like, no, I just have an extensive bus wrap and billboard collection. Don't we all? Like, I love a billboard, I take a picture. It was, so yeah, it was really a great experience. Any other questions? Let me see. Yes.
How did you cast for Brotherhood?
Brotherhood, Mike McFarland just called and said, I'd like you to come in and try reading for Alicia. Awesome, thank you. I'd like you to come in and try reading for Alicia, because the actress who played her in the original series is no longer a child, and her voice is now deeper than yours. So I came in, I listened to what she did, and then I watched the animation, and I just like did a test audition, and then they sent the test audition to the producers, and then I got called back in to do the rest of it, which I was really excited, because I'd heard amazing things about Borderlands, But I had started working at Funimation after Borderlands, FMA. So I had already, FMA had already been produced before I started working there. And so when Brotherhood came along, I was like, well, this is awesome. Now I get to work on this show, and I'd seen it, and I really loved it, and I thought the cast was amazing. And so when we kind of got to reimagine it, it was really fun to work on.
Was that the same thing when you casting for like Some Wars, Psychopaths, and Trigun Borderlands?
Trigun Borderlands, it was the same yeah, that one I got to, Badlands, I did get called in as well to do that one. Psychopath, since I'd already done the show, I auditioned for the show. They cast me as a character, like a random high school student that was like a guest star in one of the episodes. And then it happened that she came back later in the season, and then I got to do that one.
And I'll talk about the movie.
Yeah, well, because I'd already played that character previously, they just called me back in to do it again.
And how was it for Summer Wars?
Summer Wars, I believe I auditioned for that one, and then Mike slotted me in.
He told me about it, so I bought it, and I've seen it already like
Oh, yeah,
25
that's
times
amazing.
over the last year. I've watched it like 25 times.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. I think we do one more question. And did you have a question?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
For the Dino Fun game
Yeah.
that you ran, was Bryce Komida again? Or is it someone else?
Was he what?
Komida, the white hair.
I don't know. I know Bryce played my brother in the game, but I don't know who he played. I don't know if he played that other character.
Because he played Komida in Dino Fun too, but I'm not sure he played it.
He probably did then. If he's played it before, then he probably did. Yeah. I don't know. We never get to hear. It's like, and since sometimes we all get to do crazy voices and different ones, we're like, I don't know who you are. Is that you? Sounds like you, maybe. But yeah. Well, I think I can maybe do one more question if anybody has one more question. Yes.
I'm going to the subject from animated movies.
Yeah.
How was your experience with Shane Dawson?
It was amazing. He's so cool. I auditioned for him, and I thought he was a really, really nice guy. And then I kind of stalked him online, because I was like, well, if I'm working with this guy, I want to figure out things about him. And I realized we have the exact same birthday, same day, same year, same everything. And I found out we have the same middle name, just spelled differently.
Oh my god.
And then when we met and we were talking, we found out we had a lot of other things in common. And I was like, are we the same person? Like, what is happening? But it was such a great experience because he was directing the movie. And I was starring with him. I didn't know how that was going to work. Like, well, when he leaves to go like watch stuff, am I just going to have to like sit in my spot? Is this going to be awkward? But it wasn't at all. I mean, he would be like, come with me, we're going, I mean, he like really had me involved in the process. I never felt left out, and that's a really hard job to do when you're the lead in a movie and you're directing the movie and you're directing it for the first time. I was so impressed with how he handled everything. He really allowed every actor to have a lot of freedom. He trusted all of us. He made it like a great big family, and that's really up to the director to determine the tone of how a set's going to be. And it was a very supportive environment. With such a crazy movie like that, you would think that we were all like party animals and like, oh yeah, we're doing like all crazy things. We were not. I told him up front, I was like, I've really never been to like a party like this. I don't know what this is like. I've never done any of these things. He's like, me neither. I was like, oh great. So we like went to the mall and hung out with Drew, and we would go to the Cheesecake Factory and hang out at Target. I mean, we're like the weirdest kids ever. But yeah, it was amazing. It was such a fun time. He's genuinely a really, really, really good guy. So I'm really excited, and I'm really proud to see all the success he's having, because you know, it's great when it happens to anybody that you've worked with, but when they're like not really a nice person, it's kind of like, well, that's awesome. But when it is a nice person, you're like, yes, more for them. They're great people. He loves his fans. He's so talented. He was amazing to work with. So, and the film was a blast. Not what I would normally do, and not the kind of comedy I'm used to, but he really said, you know, once I saw your audition, I knew you were the girl for the movie, and I was so glad that you did it. And I had a blast doing it, so thank you. And that's time. Okay. I am going to go pick up my bag at the airport, but then I will be at the table signing stuff, and I'll have prints. So if you want to come hang out and ask questions, then I would love to see you. And I'm also doing a panel with Erica tomorrow. It's Sailor Moon related at 12:30. So if you want to come back, I will see you then. Thank you guys so much for coming and asking me cool questions.